All right, so I might say fuck during this talk. Seth told me that my talk was going to be tomorrow until 2 minutes ago, and then he said, you're going first. And I said, that's cool. I can do that. So sometimes I cuss. Honestly, it's because I have a very small vocabulary, and the curse words work really well for me because I don't know the other words to say. If you don't know about Ignite Talks, an Ignite Talk is 20 slides in 5 minutes. They auto-advance every 15 seconds. You tell one story. I said, fuck that. I'm going to tell 6 different stories because I don't want to give you one Ignite Talk. I want to give you 6. So the first story, how the fuck did I get a name spelled wrong? And it's because of my asshole dad. Actually, I love you, Dad. You might be watching the stream. But he spelled every one of our names wrong. My name, my siblings' name, everyone. I have 3 kids. My oldest is going to be 13 in like 2 weeks. This is a place called Right Time Medical. It is the emergency medical space you go to off hours. I go there a lot. These people should know how to handle emergencies like we do in DevOps. On the wall there, they have this emergency stop button. Every time I go to the front desk and I ask the people, what does that button stop? And they said, you know what? I don't know. And I said, you know, it's locked under this box. You can't stop anything. And they don't even know what it's for. You should know what your emergency stop button does. That's one piece of advice for you. This talk was supposed to be best practices for infrastructure as code. And I was going to come up here and tell you that I've teach a lot of people how to use Chef. And the thing about best practices, there are no best practices. Embrace the uncertain path to certain delight. And you can do that through this awesome Japanese term called shuhari. So when you're learning something new like Chef, you should first obey the traditional wisdom. Don't use Burke Shell first. Like, use that later when you grow up. Mark, stand up. Yes, Mark. Where do you work? Mark is the expert on running the infrastructure at TeamSnap. No one in the world knows how to run it better than Mark. Let's give a hand to Mark. I stole that from John Cowie, who was the dude in the picture. DevOps, like if you're old enough like me, there was a time when there were rock bands and rap bands. One time they came together, and it was DevOps. They just called it Walk This Way. And they actually, if you watch the video, like they tore down the wall between the rock band and the rap band. But you know what they didn't do? Like Run DMC did not pick up guitars. Aerosmith did not start rapping. They were generalists, and they were working towards making the customer happy. And you know how you get to be a really good generalist? You expose yourself to different infrastructures. The best way to do that is to quit your job. You should fucking quit your job today. The problem is I say that at DevOps sometimes, and then your manager doesn't let your coworkers come back because I send people there, and Nathan tells them to quit their job, and then they aren't here next year. But you should quit your job. It's going to be cool. You are responsible for your own learning, your own development, your own career. Your company isn't going to take care of that shit for you. You have to take care of that yourself. But you're not alone. Look around this room. You can find a mentor. You can lean on your peers. We are all your peers, and we will all give you hugs. Maybe not all of us, but I will give all of you a hug. You can mentor someone. You should give back to the community. Come up and give an Ignite talk. So I am going to talk at a conference, and I submitted an Ignite talk, and they're doing community voting. And mine is the only one with -1 vote. Let me read this thing. The only DevOps tool is the person who calls themselves a director of DevOps. I think those are the people that downvoted me. All right, there's this new idea kicking around in my head. Who's heard of API first development? API first, start with the interface. This is an awesome thing. When I think about Chef, Chef is a framework that has an ecosystem. It has an ecosystem because we thought about the interface first and made it easy to interface with Chef. But fuck that. Our community, DevOps, is about interfacing. Think about the interfaces that we have with one another, with other groups. It's all about the interfaces. Think about interfaces first. I gave you a to-do list on the previous slide, but you all were like, fuck that. I got enough shit on my to-do list, so I'm going to give you a stop doing list also. Stop mislabeling things. Stop hoarding information. All right, culture and tools. Listen, this is DevOps Days. We talk about culture here. Guess what? The tools fucking matter. The tools matter. We need to have more talks about tools that go deep at DevOps Days. All right, so that's my Ignite talk, the 6 stories that I talked to you about incident management, naming things. It's hard, especially spelling them properly. Best practices, being a generalist. You should all quit your job, and tools matter. Thanks. My name is Nathan Harvey. You can follow me on Twitter. If you're wondering what the fuck is up with the suspenders, go to that URL, and you will find out. Thanks very much.
Hello. Hi, my name is Bridget Kromhout, also known as Next. Look at that, they gave me a lot of time to walk across the stage. Thank you, Seth. Do we have to press a button? I don't need slides, I can just talk. It's extra time, yay. So I actually work at a small startup in Minneapolis called 8th Bridge. We were just acquired by a San Francisco agency called Fluid. So I didn't put all of that on here, but I had to bring you a copy of my business card. Almost everything on here now is wrong. And the title, of course, is the most ridiculous part of all, as Pete was alluding to earlier. I didn't actually pick this title. I didn't know what it was going to be until I got my offer letter, but I think it's really funny that other people sometimes give me exciting paper that they need to redact because their title was printed incorrectly on their business card, is what Tim from PagerDuty said. I was at Monitorama, shout out to Jason, excellent conference. I did almost miss my flight from PDX to SFO, where I was going to visit our new owners, because PagerDuty and I were chatting with David and Tim from PagerDuty and missed, I guess they were paging us, I don't know. We ended up having to run. Why do you have to run for your plane? It was ridiculous. But anyway, so I made some cards, I think some of you probably saw on the internet, and this one is an entertaining combination to me because it does feel like we may have reached, what did Pete say, max recruiter? Peak recruiter, that's right. And yeah, we have this word DevOps. It's kind of ludicrous. You say it enough times in a row, DevOps, 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 and it just loses all meaning. But it isn't just a buzzword, right? I mean, we are here for this conference because this is what we actually do. Sometimes, yeah, as Pete points out, being the director of corporate DevOps or whatever, having DevOps in your title is ludicrous. You know, I'm a DevOps, you're a DevOps, everyone's a DevOps. What? It's ridiculous. But I don't know how many of you watched this video that ScriptRock put up recently. It was hysterical. You should definitely watch it. There's singing, there's dancing, there's DevOps in a box. They wake up from the dream. Spoiler alert, there is no DevOps in a box. As you know, everyone was alluding to earlier, it's not something that you can buy. Yes, of course, there are all these magical unicorn companies, some of them people in this room work for, who have totally figured these things out. They have robotic attack unicorns or something, I don't know. I'm the only ops-focused person on my team, so we don't have robotic attack unicorns. But the idea of those companies are our thought leaders, well, bullshit, all right? Jason walked around and took pictures of every single person he saw in front of him at Mountain West DevOps, all right? All of us are actually trying to work in this space, even if it is sometimes kind of scary. I can't really call myself a Rubyist. I write just enough Ruby to use Chef. But this is my kitten area, and I've been told you have to have cats in your slides. So she's a little older than that now. She doesn't quite fit the size of a Coke can anymore. But something, just looking back at that picture of her that is like 10 years old now, reminds me that it is easy to get stuck in the past. It's easy to say, well, 1997, that was like 5 years ago, right? Oh, crap, no, it wasn't. And things do change. There is an awful lot of change going on in our industry right now. And we can embrace it, and this is what I tell my fellow, old school sysadmins who are, still pouring one out for SunOS 4.1.3, right? It's like, you can cling to the past, or you can embrace all of these exciting new tools and processes and culture that we have now. That, whether you use Chef or Puppet or CF Engine or, Ansible or SaltStack or whatever, tools do matter, like Nathan said, but it doesn't necessarily matter which one you're using as long as you are actually taking advantage of all the hot and cold running APIs that we have right now. It's actually, I think it's something that systems administration can really take from development as a really valuable lesson is even if some of this stuff feels different and scary and it's new things to learn or whatever, it's actually really important to actually try. Just fake it until you make it. It's working for me so far. There's also, there's definitely a sysadmin attitude, and those of you who may be sysadmins or have been sysadmins for long enough kind of recognize this, we are the high priests of something or other, and, oh, those rogue developers, they're a huge problem. And it's super funny. So we got acquired, and there's actually corporate IT now, and they think that I'm a cowboy developer. Sorry, guys, if you're watching the live stream, but I've definitely gotten this, hey, are we really going to trust people who show up at work looking like that? It was Halloween, and we probably look like that most of the time. I don't know. But anyway, to summarize, it's this whole DevOps thing, it's words. People have been arguing a lot about words lately, the whole Django thing or whatever. But the important thing is words do have meaning, But the meaning that we're imbuing this specific one with is that we're working together. So you can find me on the various normal internet places. You can come to DevOps Days Minneapolis, which I'm the head organizer for. And we're going to be in Minneapolis in July. It's the 1 month guaranteed to not snow in Minnesota. So thank you very much.
Wow, this really does take a long time. Okay, my name is Jonathan Thorpe, and I'm the community manager at CF Engine. And today I'm going to talk about why DevOps Days and other DevOps events are failing both horses and unicorns. You've heard about them a little bit today. So once this goes on, first, before I bash on DevOps Days too much, let's give a round of applause for DevOps Days, 5 years old this year. 15 seconds. Let's just make it go. Okay, you finished a bit early on that one, so. So look, many great things have been shared. We talked about continuous delivery, continuous deployment, infrastructure as code, a little bit, the word DevOps sometimes comes up. It's all about the business and use cases. And we've also talked about culture. But we've also talked about Amazon, Etsy, Facebook, over and over and over again. Are you telling me we don't have any other examples after 5 years? I'm guessing some of you might have some ideas. You shouldn't be so shy about sharing them. Okay, so DevOps Day has been about turning horses into unicorns. I say no way. Absolutely not. Horses can't become unicorns. Genetically, they're a little different. And, not all horses should even want to be unicorns. So what did the unicorn tell the horse? I don't know. What did the unicorn tell the horse? Quit your job. Well done, Nathan. Now, I believe I said before that if you say that, that's not really very helpful. So if you want to quit your job, how about quitting your job and actually going to work at one of these enterprises and actually make DevOps happen in somewhere other than a unicorn land? So one of the problems that comes up is people stand up and say, yippee, I'm saving the world one horse at a time. I'm converting everybody into unicorns. Please stand up if you've made that transformation. What you actually end up getting is a bunch of very confused horses going, this is DevOps. Why should we like that? It doesn't really fit how we work or anything, but hey, that's the one true way. There isn't one true way, as people have said today, so we're getting it right. So let's talk a little bit about how can the unicorns help. We don't just want to bash on what's happening. So, number one, don't tell people to quit their job. And when we get off the slide, if a unicorn gives you a gift, handle it with care. So you get different tools written by Netflix and other people, and they're written for their particular way of working in their environments. And if you think that you're just going to pick it up and get running with it and you're going to save the world, it's going to be awesome, not so much. So how can we actually improve that? I mean, I think we can actually do it by thinking if we're going to put something out there, we got to put the caveats there. We got to start putting out there and saying, we really are giving you this and it's going to make the world a difference because, hey, I'm awesome. And also, let's try and have DevOps Days events where Amazon, Etsy, and Facebook, etc., haven't been mentioned. And we've done well at this one. I've been pleasantly surprised. So congratulations to all the speakers so far. Any of you tomorrow? I won't be happy. Share your stories. There was an awesome presentation at DevOps Days Austin, which was basically about a guy that was very pragmatic about sharing his experiences. It's like, look, you could say this, but I'm going to do this. And yeah, I took some shortcuts here. This was manual, but it helped. And then also talk about CAMs, not CAMs. Culture is important. But as Nathan did say, we got to talk about some of the other things as well. I think we got to help people get going. It's, culture is one of those things that it's very hard to actually really walk out and say, I know what I got to do. So if you're a unicorn and you're from Facebook, think about how could what I'm doing be useful to the horses? How can you actually apply that to the environment that you don't want to be in? Don't be in the DevOps bubble where everybody in here sits here and goes, wow, this is cool. We're doing DevOps. Recognize that yes, we buy into certain things, but not everybody else does. And it's not successful until it's happening in a much wider range of people than just us in this room. And also remember that DevOps isn't the same as continuous delivery or continuous deployment. There are certain surveys out there that definitely seem to twist it so that they blur the message so that it fits whatever tool sets. Let's be honest, DevOps is about the communication side of things and working together, not a tool. And you know, DevOps Days Austin, a really good example of a DevOps Days event that's evolving, and now Pittsburgh. I have really good feelings about how it's going to be this year. Also, I want to say thank you to Patrick Dubois. When I actually proposed this, he said, yep, go for it, go make pigs fly. Well, well, Patrick, after the discussions we had afterwards, I think the pigs weren't flying and it's all good. So I'm Jonathan Thorpe, I'm from CF Engine. Yes, guys, we still exist. We are out there and we're doing kick-ass stuff. So come see us at Promise 14, and thank you.
Hi, I'm Patrick Eaton. I'm part of Stackdriver in Boston. We build monitoring as a service for public cloud apps. The email address is not a typo. We were recently acquired by Google. This is about my experience at Stackdriver, though. I want to be a little more serious and talk about how we took one of the catchphrases and actually put it into engineering practice. A lot of software cultures avoid risk. They have the long QA cycles, the long release cycles. It's just a real pain to work in. The DevOps culture, as you know, though, embraces risk. They like to experiment and take risks as long as you learn from it. That's one of the things that we really value. But of course, the risk-taking requires judgment. Just because we have this risk-taking judgment doesn't mean that we can be stupid. We have to learn how to push the boundaries, but we also need to learn how to retreat. That was the thank God ledge in Yosemite, and you better have good judgment if you're going to find yourself there. I'm mixed up here. So all of us know about a change that worked well in isolation that failed spectacularly when we put it in integration. So let's talk about that kind of environment where we have a distributed system that we're trying to take risks in. Remember Leslie Lamport's definition of a distributed system. Now let's start at the beginning. If you're going to take risks, you need a solid foundation. You have to have a reasoned architecture, a well-structured system following good engineering practices, and you want to test as well as you can in isolation. But if you're going to do something crazy, you need a safety net. You need to have a well-instrumented system. Admittedly, I'm a monitoring guy. And you also need to have good automation so you can do things in a repeatable and predictable manner. This is the key components of the Stackdriver architecture. We have a bunch of data sources feeding data into the ingest pipeline, the blue boxes. That's where I'm going to focus my attention. Those validate the data and route the data to the rest of the system. Even a simple service like ours, though, grows complex very quickly. We have dozens of services, hundreds of incidents spread across many environments and regions across the world. We have 30 instances pumping in data, 60 in our ingest pipeline, and even our Cassandra cluster has 36 nodes to it. This is that data pipeline that I talked about, where each cell uses a number of machines using RabbitMQ as a messaging client to sort the data and push it to the right location. So there's a couple of billion messages per day going through that. So we really have the big data problems of variety, velocity, and volume. First, to test for variety, we deploy the thing in test, and then we pull data out of the archives and pump it through that test environment. This allows us to test for any unusual data. Next, when we want to test for velocity, we federate Rabbit so that it's duplicating all the messages from a production cell into the test cell. Now we can test and make sure that we didn't introduce any performance problems and make sure we can keep up. And finally, for volume, we deploy a new component in the cell, and that way we can test the full data load to that downstream component. We've done this before. We do this to replace Cassandra clusters and swap out the alerting system. So when you want to take risks, these are real problems you're going to have. These are some ideas that we use to help solve these. Now, we talked about the safety net, which I think is next. Yes, the safety net. So when we go to monitor, we focus on these Q links. That message exchange in the center provides a great place for us to monitor things. When things go wrong during test, that's usually where we see it first. We also alert on these in the normal case when they spike. We also have a lot of automation not only can we make the changes in order to do those tests, but we can also revert those changes with automation. We can isolate cells when they go bad, and we can unfederate the data and so on. When all else, we're careful, but things do fail sometimes. You need to define and practice your recovery procedures. Don't just talk about it when you're hanging out with the cool kids, really do it. We have used these. We have lost a Cassandra cluster, and we lost I deleted an Elasticsearch index. So I want you to really take this to heart. You can take risks. You can do spectacular things and make it feel like your feet have barely left the ground. I hope that you can apply some of the things that we do in our system to yours. I would love to hear how you guys do it in your system. Come find me. Let's talk.